Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. This is our very first expert drop. We're really excited to launch this new series of webinars where we'll be hosting different experts in web design and web development and spotlighting some of their work. I see that some of you are still joining. I'm seeing that number in my screen keep climbing, so I'd like to give you a few more minutes just to make sure that we don't leave anybody out. In the meantime, I want to call your attention to the chat in the right-hand side of your screen. I see that some of you have already hopped in here. Keep hopping in. Feel free to share your reactions during the presentation, any questions. We'll be periodically highlighting some to go ahead and get them answered and pinning them for our guests to go ahead and expand a little bit further. In the meantime, I'll also be posting a link to our Studio Discord community. It's full of Wix users, Wix experts sharing ideas and best practices. So please feel free to hop in there after. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin that for a little bit, just so you all are aware. My name is Kendall Cook. I am one of the partner success managers at Wix. Like I said, this is a really special webinar with Wix. I'm really excited to be the host of the very first session for our Expert Drop series. Today, we're joined by Monday Media, a web design agency based in Australia. I'll go ahead and have them join us. Paul and Steve, I don't want to steal your thunder, so please go ahead and introduce yourselves to all of our viewers and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Okay, good morning from Australia. Paul and Steve. I'm Paul. I'm the founder of Monday Media. We're based in Perth in Western Australia. We're very much a creative agency that does video, web, branding, graphics, print. We pretty much do everything. For me, I've got about 10 years experience with a background in videography and photography and a little bit of 3D animation as well. The agency started about 6 years ago and it's grown to a team of 6 now. So we're still pretty small, but we've got a pretty cool studio. The team itself is split into pods. So we've got a web design team that solely use Wix Studio. We've got a videography team and we've got one full-time graphic designer, but everybody's kind of starts as a graphic designer anyway. So yeah, that's the kind of makeup of Monday Media.
Great. Sorry, don't interrupt you. Go ahead.
And I'm Steve. I'm the lead web designer here at Monday Media. Got a bachelor's in design and spent 20 years in crafting my knowledge in the print and design industry before moving over into marketing and web design. I've experienced loads of different web platforms. WordPress, Elementor, do the Editor X, but we now happily focus all our efforts on Wix Studio, which has been excellent so far. Paul and myself were lucky enough to be chosen to be part of the Wix Insiders group. An amazing experience last year, which allowed a select group of Wix partners to have our say and voice our thoughts during the development of Wix Studio. It was a great time, and this culminated in Wix inviting us over to Israel last year for the launch events and some training, which was amazing.
Neat. Oh man, I bet that was so cool.
It was
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that we're going to go ahead and get started. For anyone of our viewers, I've pinned Steve and Paul's website here, Monday Media. Take a look at their stuff. It's really neat. I think you guys will find some cool ideas in there. So why don't we go ahead and get your site pulled up. If I'm right, you're going to be showing us how to build a dynamic side menu first. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we've got 3 very cool sections of websites to show you. The first one, what you're looking at now, is Bowie's World. This only launched a few weeks ago. The client came to us and she is designing and selling luxurious kind of hair accessories. So when the client came to us, her branding was in place, her product photography is in place, and she had a very clear mindset as to how she wanted the website to be. She wanted it to be quite minimalist, quite stark. No for sale, buy one, get one free, anything like that. Very much quite a stark design. So we went through the process. We're quite fastidious in how we design websites. So we'll always go through the mock-up phase first, back and forth. Everything is just 2D until the client signs off on, yes, this is the design.
What does the mock-up phase look like? What's involved with that?
For us, we're still using Illustrator. So we mood board, and we have a team meeting. We mood board again, we come up with ideas, and then we go back into Illustrator and we just start mocking up the 2D design. And we'll go back and forth within the team. So from the graphic designers to the web team, even the video team get involved. But essentially we'll end up presenting a 2D version of what you're looking at with annotations for the client.
Okay.
So in this case, the graphic designer came up with this idea for this sticky side menu, which, you know, we always say just design first, worry about how we're going to do it later on. I say we, Steve, has to worry about how we're going to do it later. So if we take a look at this side menu, what we've called it is a CSS vertical pull-out menu. So it acts like an accordion. And when you roll over, there's kind of this smooth easing. And within that hides all the various links to, you know, the categories and collections, the other pages as well, like loyalty programs. But, you know, unlike an accordion, every header, every section affects the next section. So it's not native, it's not out of the box. It nearly is, but there's obviously a little bit of CSS going on there as well. So I'll hand over to Steve and explain how we built it.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to, as Paul said, we're going to just try and recreate this menu from scratch. You know, we're starting from nothing, so hopefully this all goes to plan. These sections we're just going to look at in the editor here. I just wanted to show you where we started. This is like our first idea, and this uses purely Wix interactions. And this menu system works okay, but it's just not as smooth as we wanted, and we wanted some way to be able to push the other menus out as you rolled over like the first and second ones. So that's where we started looking down adding a little bit of CSS to the menu, just to create a little bit more of a prestige look.
Did you decide to use CSS while you were still in the process of building, or do you get client feedback in between?
No, it was before the client feedback. It was purely us, yeah, from our aesthetics point of view, yeah.
So the graphic designer designed it in such a way that they have dictated, hey, when they roll over, this has to happen.
Okay, like it's very, very like firm, set in stone. Like we have to make this work.
Yeah, if that's what we've promised, we'll find a way. So yeah.
So this is the same menu. We're still taking the same containers, the same layers, but we've added the CSS and it creates just that action. So this is what we're going to try and recreate here. Okay, so back to the editor. I'm going to move this out of the way. First of all, we're going to add a container. So this is going to act as like the parent container that's going to hold up the whole of the menu. So as good practice, we should name these layers as we're going along. So we'll name this one parent. And so this container is going to hold all 4 of the menu items. So we're going to split this container up into a 4x1 grid. So at the moment they're all equal sizes, but as we go along and we add content to these sections, we're going to collapse these down by making them max width. so that the initial view is collapsed. Our next step, so we're going to create like a series of nested containers. So I'm going to add a second container. I'll just make it a different colour so that we can see the difference. So this container is going to stretch to fill the first column, and this is going to act as a holder for our menu. So I'm just going to name that holder. I say it's purely a holder, nothing else.
So how did you know to build it like this? Did you run into any issues when you were deciding to use CSS, or was there some trial and error?
Little bit of trial and error, yeah. We also had to create a series of containers so that we can apply the correct CSS class either across the whole menu or just to the specific, the specific menu item. Yeah. So that's our holder, and then the next step is the third container. Now this is going to create our the split for the header and the actual menu items. So this is going to be coloured in the background colour that we want to expand, and I'm going to split the columns here to 2 by 1, and these are the sizes that we want the menu. So our menu, we're making the header 40 pixels wide. Now we're having to use fixed pixels rather than percentages for this menu because the transition effects that we're creating in the CSS will only work on like a fixed size, and it won't work too well on a variable size. 200 pixels for the remainder. So the overall menu item is 240 pixels expanded, but when it's collapsed, we're going to just remain at the 40 pixels. And we name this container menu item 1. Put it menu item 1 because we have to have unique names in the IDs. So menu item 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sure. Yeah. Otherwise, so easy to lose them and wonder like, okay, what am I clicking on? What's this one?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So I've just got a pre-built container here just for speed. It's simply a container with a title. That's all. I'm going to drop that into column 1, and that's going to be my menu header. So that's header number 1. So we've got the parent container, we've got the holder in column 1, and then we've got the menu item, which is the orange one, split into 2 columns so that we've got the second header, and then column 2 is going to hold just the menu items there, the actual links.
Okay, that makes sense. We do have a question from the chat. Keely is wondering, when do you use pixels versus percentages in Studio? Is there a best case scenario? Is there like general advice?
Yeah, generally we always try and use percentages, either percentage or viewport width, viewport height. That works best for scaling all the time. But in this case, we've gone for fixed pixels just because of the issue in the transitions in the CSS. If we just wanted a straight jump without the easing, then we could use percentage.
Sure. Yeah, percentages seem a little more forgiving in most use cases.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so that's all our structure for the menu. We'll create the first menu item, and then what we will do, we will copy it across to the remaining, in this case, the remaining 3 items. We could be 4, 5, 6 items. So now that we've got all our containers named correctly, it just makes it a lot easier to add the CSS. So CSS in Studio was awesome for us. It allows so much more freedom, so much more control over everything. We can't take credit for this CSS, for this code really, because we've got a dev that works that does a lot of work for us anyway. It works off-site. Ivan is called. You can find some of his work on Wix Marketplace. So do a search for Van you're doing. But we use Ivan a lot for a lot of the sites, and it just helps, does a bit of code just to bring the sites to life, to life in the end.
It's an important point, I think, that there's a lot of agencies using Wix Studio, really good designers that just don't have any clue at all about CSS, Velo. There are a lot of good developers out there that will just give you that final 10% that you need to make your idea come to life. Took a while to find, a good one, but they are out there for sure.
Okay, that's a great tip. How do you all decide if you need to use CSS versus not using a dev? Do you try to have it be different based on different clients, or what's kind of your best practice?
I think it just comes down to the complexity.
Mm-hmm.
If it's really complex, it's an easy choice. We'll bring Ivan in. If it's something that maybe will take Steve 2 or 3 hours to kind of figure out, we'll keep it in-house. Sometimes if it's just a really big project, we'll bring Ivan in to help. It's all just about, how much time do we spend trying to figure something out when we know that our dev knows it already, right? There's an expense in that, but if it saves your entire web team 2 days of head scratching and banging on the table, then it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll weigh the costs and benefits for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna head over now and start adding the classes to these containers. I'll try and explain the best I can how the CSS works and interacts with each container. So the first container was a parent container that we created, and we're going to add the menu parent class to that container. Now this sets the content to hide and everything to collapse before any interactions and rollovers. That's that. The next class is for the menu container. So this is the one with the 2 columns, and this is menu item. Now, menu item sets the sizes, sets the width. So in its normal state, 40 pixels wide, which is the first column, and in the hover state, it's 240 pixels, which is the whole menu for the 40 plus the 200. And we're also initiating the ease transition here over half a second. Now the easing is what makes a difference. That's what just creates the nice smooth actions. Okay, so that's added that class. And the final class to add is this is optional. This class is for the header here. This is the menu header class, and what this is doing is just changing the background color on hover of this gray bar, and as we hover over, it's going to change the background color. It's going to make the background transparent, so it's going to show the orange through. It's going to turn orange, and again it's going to ease in over half a second. And And that's it. So now we just need to make sure all our sizes are gonna collapse down. Okay. So our parent menu with the columns, we can set this now down to max content. If I'd have made this max content to start with, it would have been difficult to select to be able to place our other containers in there. So that's collapsed down to nothing. And the holder that we're in, that's set to scale to the container. So that will collapse down to the menu item. I'm just checking through each of these containers, just making sure there's no minimum width or width set there. That's max content, and that's okay. So we can go ahead and preview this now. Hopefully, I've not missed any or too many steps out. So we're almost there. The first menu item works okay, but there is some sort of grey shadow just showing there. I think that will probably be a minimum width on one of the containers, which I've missed somewhere. There we go. The parent container has a minimum width of 50 pixels attached to it, but we want it to collapse down fully. Okay, so there we go. So that's our first menu item working. And what we will do then, we will just simply duplicate the menu holder that we have in column 1. We will just duplicate that 3 more times and just place it into columns 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, and end up with that menu.
Easy as that.
I know, that seems so simple. When you guys were first building this, how long did it take you to build? Now you've got it down. It's so fast.
Yeah, it was going on for most of the day's work, I would have thought. The first time, trial and error, going backwards and forwards, and trying out different ideas.
I think we reached a point on day 1 after the client had signed off of that first example at the top of the screen there. Can we build it ourselves? Because we're not coders. Steve knows code, right? Knows how to read it, but we're not. I don't want Steve's skills to be, wasted in trying to figure out code. So, we made a call at the end of day 1. No, let's get Ivan in to give us that code, and everything we just went through there with the code at the bottom that was given to us. And if you find a good developer, they'll write instructions at the top of each part of the code that explain this is the easing, this is the transition. And then it is just a case of basically doing what Steve just did, adding classes, duplicating, editing colors, all the rest of it back in the native editor. So yeah, it's definitely possible for anybody to do, to kind of push that boundary, knowing that if you find a half decent dev, you'll be able to do it.
Okay, very cool. Can't believe how fast that was still. Steve, I think you're being modest. I think you are a coder.
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. No. I would like to be.
Okay.
But everything you see here, everything you see here, with the rollovers, this is all just done in the editor, same as you would, for any menu item. And yeah, we've changed this and swapped these around 100 times. But the core underlying code was always there for us to kind of play around with. So yeah.
We've actually repurposed this menu since this site, and we've sort of repurposed it to use as a vertical drop down as well. That's on a site that we're just working on at the moment. So yeah, so once it's been created once, we've got the flexibility then to reuse and repurpose. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for any future work as well.
Okay, neat. And could you have built something like this before Studio? How did Studio change this client's site for you if Studio hadn't existed?
Yeah, we would have struggled before Studio. We didn't have the option for the CSS, so that was not a restriction, because before Studio it wasn't a restriction. It's just that Studio adding the CSS has just opened up a whole new, world of possibilities with the CSS. And we've also used CSS effects further down on this site, but for these transition effects here, where the text changes color as a boxes roll over on scroll. So I think these are some more CSS effects.
I think with Studio, the point is you can just design first and kind of just worry about it later, knowing that there's going to be a solution. We're going to figure it out. Hopefully natively, but if not, there's always
there's always a workaround.
Chuck in a bit of CSS, you'll make it work.
Yeah.
So
there's always a way.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I think that was so helpful. It's so cool to see someone code in real time on an actual site and see how cool that client site turns out at the end.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we are probably ready to move on to site number 2. I'm sure everyone's gonna be very interested to see that cool repeater you built for your cabinet client.
Alrighty. So the next client, Cabinet Design Hub. So they're based in Perth, Western Australia. This client came to us. He's got a gigantic factory. It's a business-to-business model. They manufacture pre-packed kitchens and cabinets and wardrobes. It's not particularly sexy. We had very little to work off. We had actually no images, no video or anything like that to work with from the start. The branding was done, and we needed to build a website that spoke to actual kitchen fitters, so other businesses. So what we did, the client said, look, I get asked the same questions over and over. Can you do this? What's it made of? How do you manufacture? How do you deliver? All that sort of stuff. So the homepage is very much, answering the questions that he gets from other, from his clients, which are businesses, around sustainability. The section we're going to show you today isn't actually a repeater. We're calling it a rollover grid. Because it is a grid. And this kind of acts like a really cool FAQs. Because these are the questions, what's it made of? Do you put it on pallets? How do you deliver it? What's your quality assurance? Are the holes pre-drilled? Because it saves his clients lots of time. So this is what we came up with. We had, like I said, we had nothing to work with. So it's a 3x3, and a few things happen. So when you roll over, the individual square changes color. There's a bit of animation on the arrow here. And as you roll over, the central image changes, but it also spills out into the other boxes, which is quite cool. The actual images themselves are just like stock images that we found from stock libraries. They're all different. Some are black and white, some are color, none of them matched up. So we just added a Photoshop effect just to give it kind of hand-drawn, kind of, trading with a pencil over the ear kind of feel. So that's what we've done. Yeah, Steve will show you how, but that's the thinking behind why we've added this section. And I think it works pretty well. So over to you, Steve.
Okay.
That's a great idea. There is a question, I think you already touched on this a little bit, but Michael's asking about his clients who have no branding. It sounds like that's where you all turn to stock images and using that Photoshop effect to get like a nice brand look. Does this come up often, the no branding? Do you always choose to stock images?
No. I mean, it depends on where the client is at their journey. If they're a startup and they have no clients, they've not done anything, let's say they're just a trade-based service and you're starting from scratch, you have to get really creative. And a lot of the time it is taking a bunch of stock images and how do you bring them all together? Sometimes we might trace them like we have here. Other times we might use AI, right, just to get a bunch of similar looking images. We've even gone full hand drawn and just used illustrations to go with that. We've done that with a few websites, but I mean, some clients come on board with a terrible brand to start with, and they don't want to change it. You just got to work with it. Other times, like Cabinet Design Hub, it does the trick. We didn't do the logo or anything like that, but he's got a great big 2-meter signage on his building. He's not going to change it. So it's just a case of working with it, right? So there's a grey and there's a green, so let's go with it. Let's work with what he's got and improve it as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Yeah, fair enough. Every client is different. They all have different needs, different things they think they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so yep, we're going to roll over into Studio Editor again and take a look at how we built that grid section. So I'm going to start off just creating a new section. I'm just going to pull it down to roughly the size of the screen where we'll need. I'm going to, so first of all, I'm just going to add an asset that I have saved. So this is the container of the rollover images that we're going to link to. So what this is, it's just a single container, and it's got the 8 images, one for each of the 8 outer squares, the rollovers, and they're all just layered one on top of the other, all in the same place, so that we can pick and choose which one to show and which one to hide on the rollovers. So I'm just going to center that container in the background, and we're going to build our grid over the top of this. So we're going to add a container. I'm going to stretch it to the full section. We're going to remove the background, and we're going to add a 3x3 grid.
Okay. And I want to clarify for our viewers, this is a grid and not a repeater, correct?
Yeah. We have to go for a grid in this instance. If we want to use a repeater, we could still create the same effect. It would actually be easier because we won't have to create the first one, and it repeats across all the sections. Mm-hmm. But it would also repeat on the center section as well, where we want to leave the center item blank so we can see the image. We only want the rollover items around the outer 8 and not across all 9. Yeah. Okay.
So grid just offers a little bit more flexibility, some more options.
In this case, yeah.
In this case, yeah.
Yeah, well, we do tend to favour repeaters quite a lot because they do save a lot of work. Let's say you're only creating the first item, and all the rest are created for you from there. Yeah. Okay, so we have our 3x3 grid, and I'm just going to create another container inside here, which is going to act as the rollover trigger and hold our content in there. So I'm going to make that green, which is the highlight color that we're going to roll over with. I'm going to add, let's say, 5% padding all around. And I'm just going to drag in these items I have at the bottom here. So this is the title. I'm going to just align that to the top left corner, and we'll make the width around 75%. Text container here. Again, we'll align this to the bottom left. And again, stretch it across 75%. And then we have a little SVG for the arrow here. And align this to the top right. And size-wise, we'll pull this out just to try and match the size of the header there. Okay, so that's the makeup of our first item before we start adding the Wix interactions. And then once we add the interactions to this one, then we'll copy it across the other 7 squares. So over to the animation effects. So our trigger is all hover effects. And then add a new hover effect. We're adding this hover effect to the actual container itself, because this allows us to affect the container plus anything within the container. There isn't a preset that allows us to create a stack of all the interactions in one go. So we usually create a custom animation. What this does, it allows us to build up layers of interactions and animations which will all work and timed together. Before I do that, I should have set the initial state for this container. Before rollover, we actually want the color to be, the opacity to be 0, and the text before rollover, we want to hide the text as well. So we're taking the opacities for these items down to 0, and then we're going to create the animation. So it's going to edit the one we just started there. So yeah, so the first step would be to take the opacity of the background up to 100% so that we're showing the green on rollover. This adds it to the stack here. So this is going to happen over 0.3 of a second, and there's a little bit of easing on that as well, just to create the smoothness.
And I know some of our viewers are new to interactions. What is easing? What does it do?
It just adds like inertia. So you've got something that goes from point A to point B, and if you don't add easing, the speed from point A to point B will be constant. If you add easing, it will start slowly, speed up, and finish. Like when you're driving a car and you come to a set of traffic lights, you ease to a stop. You don't just go from 60 kilometers an hour to 0.
Right.
Right. You just ease into it, and that's all easing is.
Okay, that's handy. Yeah, adds a little bit of visual interest, a little bit of more professional.
Yeah, definitely gives it a sense of luxury for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so our next interaction is going to be to display the text. So we're going to take that to 100% opacity as well. And again, so this is adding it to the stack now over the same timing with the same easing. And then we also need the arrow in the corner. We're going to spin that on hover as well. So we're going to rotate through 90 degrees. Again, so it's all timed to the same timing, or 0.3 of a second with the same easing. And we can we can visually play that as well, just to make sure that everything's happening at the same time. And that's our rollover. Let's just quickly preview that. There we go.
Okay, wow. That was also incredibly fast.
Well working. So yeah, from there we would we'll just simply we'll just duplicate this across all the squares, stretch to fit the container.
And when you duplicate like that, does it also duplicate all of the interactions that you've made?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Add a border.
Good spot. Yeah, that's it. The border. We just need a border on the container as well, just to separate the items. Let's just add a constant 1 point border. So I'm just turning off the scaling for the border because I don't really want the border to scale with the actual item. In this case, I just want it to stay at a fixed point. So there we go. So that's our initial two items setup. Like I say, we will copy that down for the rest, and then once we have those in place, then it's a matter of linking up the rollovers for the images in the background here. So this is where we've used a bit of a combination of the native Wix interactions plus a little bit of Velo on hover, just to link up these images, which we'll have a look at now. Okay, I'm just going to skip ahead to this page. It's the same setup as we had, but I've copied around the rest of the remaining items.
It looks like we also have another question in the chat from Shane. He's asking about, especially for limited budget clients, how do you decide what to prioritize? Are you focusing more on branding, custom videos, the wow factor of the web design? How do you choose with this type of client?
Yeah, it's such a big question. But it does depend on the client. Yeah, it does depend on the client. What you have got to prioritize if they've got a limited budget. Do you go with some unique functionality like a really cool booking engine, an e-commerce engine, versus stuff like this, which is kind of just nice to have, right? In this case, the rest of the website is the whole website's very simple. So their budget has gone to design because all the website has to do is give information. There's nothing else to it. There's not even live bookings or anything like that. So I suppose in this case it was a no-brainer. Their budget went to the design functionality. But if you had to choose, functionality over design, well, yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, you have to have functionality, right? And then, yeah, maybe we don't, but maybe you would slip into a template, which then speeds up your cool design, but then you can focus your time and labor on functionality. It really just depends on the client. If you're selling e-commerce like Bowie's, there's no question. Their design has to fit the product, because if you're selling something that's premium, then you have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great answer. Obviously, it's a tough question.
It's an answer. I don't know if it's
great. So back to the completed grid is where we're going to link up that stack of 8 background images to the rollovers for the containers here. So the image stack that I've named images through 1 through to 8, just so that I can correspond those to the correct boxes. Initially, I've set the fur images 2 through to 8 to be hidden, so only image 1 will display to start with. So before there's any hover interactions whatsoever, we'll only show the first image. Otherwise, there will be nothing showing until you roll over. And then I've also named each of my hover boxes, hover 1 through to 8, just so that I know which belongs to which. So onto the Velo. This is quite basic, straightforward Velo code. This is the type of code I can sort of manage myself before we get.
Before you call Ivan.
much more in depth than this, then we're passing over to Ivan. Yeah.
I can see other people just leaving the conversation at this point, like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. But adding a little bit of velo, or knowing a little bit of velo really does help. Again, it opens up a lot more possibilities as well. So just as we have our easing on the Wix animations, we're also creating a variable for the same easing effect here in the code, over 300 milliseconds, which will time well with the 0.3 seconds from the Wix animations. We're just creating a basic function called hide all, which when called will hide all 8 images. The reason I'm doing that is because we don't know what order we're going to roll over from one box to the next. I might jump from here to there, or down, across, diagonal. So just as a fail-safe, as we roll from one item to another, we're going to hide all the images before showing the next images. So that's that function, hiding images 1 to 8. And then, this is a function for each container. So what we're doing, we're taking each container in turn, and we're adding hover effects. In Velo, this is called mouse in. So on mouse in, you just click this, and it adds a blank function for mouse in for that container, and we're calling the hide all function to hide all images, and then we're going to show image 1 from the container in the background there.
Okay.
Using the fade variable that we created at the top.
Okay, and that's why it's so important to know which image is which.
Yeah, to match up. Yeah, so we have to do that for each of the items. We have to add a mouse in for box 1, box 2, box 3, which creates these 8 hover functions here. So hover 4, show image 4, hover 5, show image 5, and so on.
Easy.
And hopefully when we run that. So on hover, it's running the Wix animations to change the color of the background, show the text, and turn the arrow. But also at the same time, it's hiding all the images as I roll from one to the next, and then showing the correct image for the rollover box. So image 1, image 2, image 3, 4, and so on. So hopefully quite simple.
Yeah, in theory, it seems quite simple. I'm guessing it takes a bit of practice.
There's a way to combine both native Wix animations and Velo animations to interact, to run together with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the way this turned out. Like all the different effects draws your eye immediately. What did the client think of this when you presented it?
Oh yeah, he was super happy. He was super happy because, when we had our first consultation, I suppose he didn't realize he needed it as such. He just said, like, I need to get these points across. This is what we do differently. We pre-drill the holes. He's got this, I don't know, 100 grand CNC machine, which does these things. And it is Australian made. It is, palleted correctly. It's got that guarantee behind it. So, it was just from our conversation. But yeah, he was particularly pleased with that for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, I bet he was. I can't imagine any client seeing that design and being like, well, I don't like it.
Yeah, no changes, no requests to change anything. He understood the limitations of, imagery.
Mm-hmm.
So he was more impressed that we probably found 8 images that go with pre-drilled holes, which was actually quite a challenge. Find the right images and just trying to match them up. So yeah. Okay,
awesome. I think that we're probably ready to move on to our third and last section. I don't know how many other people have heard of Spline, but you guys are going to be seeing something very neat that Steve and Paul have to share.
Okay, so we've used Spline a couple of times now. Spline is basically a browser-based tool that allows you to build interactive 3D content for the web. It's visual led, like After Effects in a way, but you can just export, a simple iframe. You can just export anything you want, really. It's pretty easy. We'll go through it. But we decided the first time we used Spline, we used it for this client here, Paintsill Australia. So they're a really clever brand in Australia that have developed their own ceramic hardening fluids, for performance cars and things like that. So it's very technology led. It's not a detailing service. The products are quite expensive, but for good reason. So we've gone for this very black kind of design, kind of futuristic. We're going to show you how we built this section here. And I suppose the reason we've gone for this is, one, because we designed it 2D and gave ourselves a challenge, literally not knowing how we were going to build it. They hadn't even heard of Spline when we actually came up with this concept of, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have some call out titles, have this car that kind of moves? That'd be cool. So it goes with the rest of the site. The rest of the site is kind of, it's got this kind of cool horizontal scroll effect. The mouse changes. You've got this kind of little bead that goes on, but it does match when we talk about the whole team working together. We've got the graphic designers, web designers, and the videographers. It goes in line with the videos that we produce. We've got all these kind of 3D graphics and stuff like that in the videos, so it really fits. It fits the entire design. So if I go back up here, this section here is what we're showing you, and it's built with Spline, and we've put it in via an iframe. It's a car. It moves around, and I'll show you some little details that kind of just make it. So if you look at this unmatched durability, you'll see that each one of these call-out titles has their own little call-out kind of starting point pin. And if I move the mouse around, you'll see that for this one, it goes behind the vehicle. That gives it that illusion of depth. If you take a look at this corner here, you'll see the light changes depending on where the car is. So that, again, it gives it that illusion that it's genuine kind of 3D space and time. And then this call out title here, this trusted quality, goes in front of the wing mirror, for example. So they're all stacked on the Z axis, going back into the website, gives it that depth.
Quite interesting. Very futuristic. I like this.
Yeah, and it's pretty simple. Like it is. It's way more simple than you would think, because we didn't build the car, and I'll show you how. So here's Spline. It is a very, you've probably seen all the videos on Instagram and what have you. But it's free to use. We've got a paid account to get rid of the Spline logos and things like that. But essentially, this is the homepage, and within Spline, it's got a community, and within the community, there's essentially a library of pre-built assets if you want to use them. We have built splines from scratch, but in this case, we didn't want to sit there and draw an Aston Martin for 3 weeks. So we went into the community and we found this asset, free to use or open to use, Aston Martin animation. So we found this and was like, okay, well, that's a pretty good starting point. If I click on this animation, it will show you what's going on. It's got some audio to it. You can move the car around. It's on a road. The road is obviously moving. It's got these interior lights. It's got the headlights shining on the road. So I'll close that down. So you can repurpose these assets that you find within Spline. And if you it's called remixing. You open it up and you get what you see there. This is basically the editor. Like any editor, it's kind of like Studio, right? You've got your layers of what is going on with what you're building, and then you've got your actual tools down this side. This is the actual Aston Martin that we found, and this is what we found when we first logged in to this asset. It's quite big. It's somewhere around 10 megabytes to export, which is way too big.
Huge. Wow.
Pretty big. We did experiment, like we exported it with the settings that we wanted, and the website was too slow to load. It was always 1.5 to 2 seconds before that section loaded. So we've gone back in and we've kind of decided, okay, well, what can we get rid on this that we don't need on our website, right? So if you go down this side, we've got this rectangle, which is the road. So you can just simply hide that, right? So we don't need the road. I know from my experience of working with kind of 3D models and things like that anything to do with lighting is also going to add weight to the file size. So it's just a case of like, okay, well, where are the front? Can we get away with turning the front lights off? It's not ideal, but we have to balance, performance, the visuals, with the speed. So we've turned the headlights off and we've kept this one ambient light on the vehicle. But it really is as simple as like going through and say, okay, what do you want to change? Let's say we didn't want the body to be black. We can go over, we can change the color. I don't know. Let's just make it, I don't know, like proper Aston Martin green. I don't know where that would be, about there. You can change the color. You can go in our case, we've changed a lot of things. We've turned off a lot of the animations, the wheel spins. We've turned off the audio. We've turned off the road. And we have throttled the animation just to a mouse movement only. So where you would do that is you would kind of select the whole group, and there's this thing called events over here, and we've got it set at look at, and look at is essentially where it just follows the mouse, kind of like the new Wix mouse parallax animations that have just come out. It's similar thought process to that. So we've done that, right? And what we have ended up with is this. We've added these call out titles. As you can see, we have turned off the lights. We've got rid of the road. The wheels don't animate anymore. We've kind of got rid of a lot underside of the vehicle. We've kind of gutted the inside of the vehicle as well. We've turned off the interior lights. We've kind of just, everything that we know is heavy, we've stripped out. All right, so we've kind of taken it into the digital garage and stripped it all out. Then we've added these call out titles. So if we click on point 4 here, let's go over to this one here is at the front. Like Adobe After Effects, it gives you the X, the Y, and the Z angle, and you can move that to wherever you want, right? So if we look at these 4 call out titles and we go to side view, you can see that they are stacked going back in space and time in the car. And yeah, that's it. They stick, and we've set our animation to look at. We've throttled the orbit, so nobody can turn the car right around. It just follows the mouse, just a little bit. So there's that little bit of movement. So that's Spline, and Steve's going to show you the export settings because it's easier. It's easier than what you think.
So, like Paul said, this car was very much a compromise on what we wanted versus file size. All the time, we're always, designers, we're always mindful of file size in everything we do. We're always trying to use like logos as SVGs wherever we can, and then we're compressing images. There's a great tool called Scroosh, which I believe it's by Google. We use it for all our images before we upload to resize and compress. So we're trying not to upload anything that's too heavy for any of the sites. The same goes for this Spline asset. Like Paul said, I think it started off at 10 megabytes plus, but we wanted to try and get it down as much as possible. The 3D asset is always going to be heavy. We know that, but yeah, we just want to try and You get the file size down as much as possible just for that speed. To export a camera view, which we've created. We're just going to first of all go through any player settings and turn off everything that we can. So in this case, we don't want to show any logos. We're turning off background colors. We're turning off scroll effects. We're even turning off the cursor. We don't require any like orbit effects. This like allows the viewer to move the car around themselves and at free will. But we're just restricting the movement with the mouse look at effect. So we're turning off the orbit, pan, zoom effects.
And turning all these off, that also shrinks the file size. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So in this case, everything's turned off. All the hover effects, they're all turned off. And then even down to the materials, we're going just normal rather than high. So we're compromising on the quality, favouring performance. And again, in the compression here, we're going to favour performance rather than quality. And that's it for this.
You would update the public URL first.
That's right. Yeah. Any changes you've made, you'd update the URL, and this is like the export code, and then we're just going to paste that into a iframe in Studio. And it's as simple as copying the embed and then zooming over to the Studio. So this is the site for Paintsill that we've got set up, and we want to drop the car into this section. And I'm going to colour this black. The car looks best on a dark background, so we're going to colour this section black. And we know that the car that we've created and the look at works best at a ratio of 2:1. So I'm going to set this section up. The height of this section I'm going to create as 50 viewport width, just so that the width is always twice the height. Just keep that ratio. Which worked well for the Spline car. And we're going to add an embed code. We're going to stretch it to the full size, and we're going to paste in. We're going to paste in the code that I copied from Spline there. Take that, give it a second. And there we go. It's pretty much as simple as the iframe, just pasting in the code there. The only other thing we wanted to do is we just wanted to blend these two sections together, because we've got like the black against the paler grey. So I've just got a little SVG asset that I have saved, which is just an SVG gradient fill from the grey to transparent, which I'm just going to drop down the bottom there, and anchor it to the bottom center, make sure it's 100% width. And there you go.
Okay, that did seem pretty simple. How long did it take you to figure out how to use Spline?
Well, honestly, really not that long. We found Spline. We started, getting served up all these videos, of Spline working with Wix Studio, working with other web platforms, and we knew we had to jump on it because it is very, very cool. And essentially, Steve and Nathan, one of the other web designers, put their headphones on, and over the course of 2 days, learnt it. Like, just really get them, let them learn it, and that's what we came up with. To the point where we have actually created our own from scratch. If I go, I think it's on this page.
I think so, yeah.
I think so. Just to show you that you can build, this was done by one of the other web designers, from scratch. That bottle it's not from the community assets or anything like that, and it's just simple. It's a bottle. It's got a cap. It's got some lighting. It's got some reflection. It's got, the wraparound label on it, and that's like a meg. I don't even think it's that. Yeah, it's kilobytes in size, but it's just a cool little thing to have on a website, So yeah, I mean, you can jump on every tool, right? There's always, every week there's something new, but I think Spline is probably here to stay. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like it also makes it easy in terms of like adjusting some of the settings, compressing the image to not sacrifice design for function.
Yeah.
Okay, very neat. And then as far as it goes with like building a studio site, just thinking about, client wants, design, functionality, how has web design for you changed with studio just in general?
It always comes back to that kind of split between, your imagination and your initial design, saying, it'd be great to do that. Because, if we go back in time to before, Wix Studio, Editor X, we would try and push the designs, but in the back of your mind, you kind of, you scrub it out and say, well, we know we can't do that. So let's design it differently. So it's the tail wagging the dog. Whereas now it's not, it's the designers will push the graphic designers will push the web designers and developers.
And when a client asks for something, we say yes.
Yeah.
Rather than knowing that there will be a way to do it. Yeah.
It's always a yes, and then we'll figure it out later.
Yeah. It's always a yes. We'll worry about it later. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm wide awake thinking, how are we going to do that then? Well, we always find a way.
Yeah. Okay, very neat. Spline is a really cool tool. This is something I hadn't heard of before, so I'm sure we're going to see a lot more people using it now.
Yeah, it is very cool. I mean, some we've seen designers do crazy things with Spline, because you can link your Spline animations to scroll. At the moment, we've just used it on this website for mouse, and mouse interaction. But yeah, you can do some pretty cool parallax stuff and interactive stuff as well, where the end user can pick stuff up, drop it somewhere else, and it is very cool. But you've always got to balance that with the size of the file.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotta remember how important that performance is.
Yeah, like you take that bottle compared to the car, that's kilobytes because we've designed it from scratch. So it all comes down to how many materials are you using, how many polygons there are in the design and things like that. And the least amount possible is going to be the way. So like the Spline homepage, I mean, that will be tiny. Right, it's got an interaction where you hover over, which is just an event within Spline. But these are all just essentially repeaters.
The polygons are low.
Yeah, that would be a tiny file size for sure.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. I think that pretty much sums up Spline, unless there's anything else you want to touch on with that before we go ahead and wrap things up.
No, I think as long as you've used, you understand you can design in 3D space. So you understand that there's a Z axis, there's a Y axis, and there's an X axis. That everything just comes from there, and it's just layered. So it is learnable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Yeah, Spline is a super neat tool for sure. I think if we want to go ahead and recap the entire presentation, obviously learned about building that side accordion menu, learned about building grids, learned about Spline itself. If there's anything that you two want the audience to take away from this presentation overall about studio, about design, what's kind of your key bullet points for everybody?
I would just say that, there's very few limitations. A lot's possible. Just like I say, just run free with the design, and then I'm sure there's always a way to create whatever you need. So that might take a day's research here and there, but yeah, just go with it and enjoy.
Find yourself a good developer. I say, it's so easy. It actually took us a year to find Ivan. We went through, 10 different developers on Fiverr and Upwork and, you name it. So if you can find yourself a good developer, it does help. And, like I said, they're just doing that last little bit of percentage work that makes all the difference.
Sure. Yeah. And just opens up so many more options with Velo, with coding. Absolutely.
Yeah. And allows you to say yes, because
exactly.
Everything can be coded.
Exactly. Okay, great. And then I think that is pretty much about it. Paul and Steve, thank you so much for joining us, for being our host, and for putting up with all of our questions. I think that is about it, unless you have any last minute advice for our audience.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And thank you to our audience. Hopefully you put some of this stuff into practice. Please go ahead and join the Wix Studio Discord as well. I think you'll find tons of helpful advice in there, tons of Wix experts, tons of resources for you in general. And we're super excited to help more people learn about Studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
See ya.